Usually does. Sorry.
Thank you, everybody, and welcome along, and nice to see a few extras in the gallery tonight. Welcome back, Jeff, after a fair I've seen you for a while. Welcome along to all new councillors and first council meeting on the agenda, so welcome everybody. We have an apology from Councillor Gatehouse tonight, unwell, so it's disappointing she can't be here for the first meeting, but 3.0, anybody wish to declare a pecuniary interest on tonight's agenda? Thank you, silence is noted, that's good. 4.0 is confirmation of the minutes of 18th, oh, sorry, we are just waiting. Councillor, look down there and couldn't see. Thank you, confirmation of the minutes of 18th October 2022. I have one of the councillors at that meeting to move that please. Councillor Reynolds, thank you, and the second, Councillor Reid. Any discussion on those minutes as circulated at all? I should put those minutes for passing. All those in favour? Passed unanimous. Against? That's all. Yep. 5.0 is the mayor's report as presented. Can I move it for that, please? Councillor Reid, seconder, thank you. Deputy Mayor Woolley, thanks very much. And can I just add to the end of that, just that the General Manager and I met with the CEO of Lady Gary this morning. And after that, and invite questions on my report from the floor, please. Reynolds.
Through the chair, it's noted here that you met with, is it Luke Dorner, to read the swimming pool?
Yes.
Yeah, how's the swimming pool progressing, and have we got any sort of time frame on when we can expect that to be open?
There's been a little delay. He's ticked all the boxes, and he actually did the very sensible thing and right thing and come to see us. As most people are aware, the issues with the building industry, and that have made it quite awkward to proceed as quickly as he was hoping to, and everything was still lined up, and just several months behind where he'd like to be. So it was a courtesy visit by Luke, so we didn't get worried or nervous, to outline that it was still progressing.
Excellent, so still going ahead.
Yes, just because of the builders, building surveyors and engineering, it's just the project managers also. It's just happened to reassess on that a little bit.
I'm familiar with that, the stadium on the bridge.
We certainly are, yes. Everybody that's got involved with building at the moment is familiar with that.
Through the Mayor, the meeting with Andrew Dunbabin about Dunalley Hall, if you could just give us an outline of that, please, that'd be great.
Yes, Andrew and his committee realised that there was a lot more to the involvement with the hall, and had acknowledged that they probably needed to have a little bit more work done on how and best for it to operate, and under the suggestions that Jesse put was probably a workable thing to review it as the year progresses, and just come to let us know that he was still hoping to have a significant community events there as and if required, which any group can possibly do, and that we were still working with those. And I think since the meeting he had with me out of courtesy, he's also had another meeting with senior staff here, and Jess is nodding, so the communications are still totally open.
Great.
Just not rushing it, taking a more sensible pace with everybody involved, not just a few.
Kerry, what's the capacity you think in your talk to Lady Gary? How many kids can they handle?
Lady Gary briefly discussed the plans this morning about the old kindergarten building and their ability to use a bit more land there to build on as well. They also worked to a formula which we asked could we work with them to see about the future, the present needs and the future needs of not just Midway Point, but also township of Sorell, and how that might apply also to Southern Beaches. I think he was fairly receptive to being open about how they do those numbers. We also talked about the number of properties under development at the moment and our projection over the next 5 to 7 years of what the community might need. So certainly got a way to think a little bit more of that. We're going to continue the dialogue. We're also talking to the Minister's office regarding the area that's been put aside at the school for childcare operator to operate on a licensed basis with the education department.
How will they fund that growth? Is it state grants? Or is it self-funded?
Self-funded by the individual companies involved. Nothing else, I shall put my report for acceptance. All those in favour? Passed unanimously, thank you. Supplementary items, there is nothing before us at the moment. 7.0 is the council workshop listed there. 8.0 is departmental reports. Can I have a move, please, for these reports? Councillor Reid, and the second is Councillor Trenius, and invite councillors in anything in the reports of the staff to the 3 senior managers here today, please. Oh yes, and got financial there as well, so. Councillor Reid. Councillor Reid.
Just a quick one, Russell. I've been getting quite a few people in the community excited about the new playground that's going up at Penna. Do we have any sort of idea on when that might be open for the public to use? Knowing it's not.
It'll be to do with the staging of the subdivision, and when it's ready, we'll probably get a safety check going before we would announce it open. But we can certainly talk to the developer about his current timeline. But there's a few stormwater issues to sort out on the site as well, which obviously with the weather we've got, that's a floodplain area down where their playground is at the moment.
Thank you, Russell.
Just a tongue-in-cheek comment, Russell. We thought about buying shares in the toilet roll holder company.
Yeah.
Any of them been replaced again in the toilet tunnels?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a fair comment, Mayor, that there's a lot of time going reviewing footage for the police at the moment, and then further follow-ups for various stat-decks for stripping off of information and all the rest of it, which would hopefully get semi-resolved if we're able to get a CCTV. Because we basically, for the councillors, we provide the cameras, but the police access it for cases, but they've got to request it and then be provided. We'd like them to have a direct feed to all of our cameras around the municipality so they can do that job themselves rather than us being the middleman.
In relation to the vandalism on the new stadium, how many hours would have been spent reviewing that tape?
I reckon we've lost 10 to 15 hours between not just tape, but providing information and looking for things and various other bits and pieces.
So it's not quite as simple as just one.
No. Well, you've got to look through from the time that unless you know exactly when the incident took place, you basically got to fast forward through it. You got to freeze frame it, put it in the right format. Science stat decks, as Jess will tell you, and various other bits and pieces. So no, it's not because it's got to be able to stand up in court, obviously, if they make a prosecution. So all the procedures have to be followed, because if you fail any of those, you fail the court case as well.
Further to that, through the Mayor, the reports, or the lists of reports of graffiti and vandalism seem to be growing each agenda. is that more reporting or is it literally more incidents of that?
More incidents in there, a whole series of smaller but more frequent incidents. On property that hasn't previously been tagged or otherwise,
Okay,
including like around the footy ovals, they tag the glass and various other places, so, and it's other people's infrastructure as well, like
Yep.
Tas Networks and Tas Water, you know, upstairs, some of that as well.
Probably could add to the information from the police is their arrest and prosecution rate is significantly higher also in identifying the rest of the system that is causing the frustration.
I have,
Councillor Prentice.
yes, I've got a few, Mayor. The status of the BMX project, where are we at with that?
Through me, we've advised the successful teams that they've got the job. We're meeting with them tomorrow to finalise schedule and to enter into the contract. We met with the club last week. Some members of the club, I should say last week, but some committee, if you like, to help work through this process with council, which is really, really good meeting, positive and sensible. So they're clear on what they need to do and what we're doing, and we're sort of off doing our own thing accordingly. Our hope is that it's finished by the end of the financial year, but we'll know tomorrow what the proposed timeframe is. And we're also, between the club and council, working out whom we go to try and get some additional funds to
That's
make
what I
up
was going to
potential
ask, how
shortfall.
much are you predicting?
Well, based on the tender, it's up to 100,000 over our pre-tender estimate. That may increase subject to additional costs for fencing and power. So it could be up to 200,000, but the Northern Council is assisting us with liaising with Mona to see if they would assist in some way, because they're taking on the lease from the Northern Council where the club currently lives. I've been on to the Minister's office, I've been on to Sport and Rec separately, and I wouldn't say that they're showering me with checks, but they've also, particularly the government at least, haven't shut the door. It's not the best time to be going to them for additional funds. But also they recognise that we've taken the risk and done the right thing, if you like, by the community, the club and the project and that sport. So hopefully it'll.
Failing all that,
work.
we'll have to cover.
Sorry.
Failing all that, we'll have to.
Well, that's what we need to resolve tomorrow with the contract, is the actual specifics of the tender, inclusions and exclusions, so that we try and obviously minimise the costs as best we can. There's the potential to modify the track, but on behalf of council, I'll recommend against that. It potentially would save costs, but we won't end up with the same product, and we get one go at this. Should be the best facility in the state, so I'd much rather we do that. Hopefully get some additional funds.
Thank you. I have got a couple of others, and sorry, Russell, I'm back to you.
Yeah, that's okay.
I was down Alley Copping area there, a week ago, and noticed the Marion Bay Road and state it's in. I'm glad you explained that it needs
It basically needs some basic course material on it and needs complete resealing, yeah.
resealing. Thank you. You were saying that some of the capital works projects have to be deferred. Which ones are they?
I suppose we'll discuss it in mid-year budget
Okay.
review, but it's not that we're going to get rid of them, but they may slide from this capital year into the next council year, basically. But that'll all have to be approved by council as part of the mid-year review.
Thank you. And the other one is the proposed rezoning of land and Paulina Road to general business. What's that all about?
Through me, that sale transaction's taken place and the new owner wishes to pursue potential commercial business zone. So our senior planner had given advice some months ago, and we actually, Russ and I had also given some advice to a consultant at the time, this is many, many months ago. You know, we'll see what comes of it, but there's a new owner and they want to pursue this opportunity, but there's a whole range of matters the council can consider before it gets too far down the track, and it's only just been submitted, so there's a range of things that have been put back to the applicant requesting further information.
I'm just thinking, I remember years ago in the discussion about the Sorell, the market there that's out of, it's ribbon development out of the main CBD of Sorell. And I was just surprised to see that was proposed. There was a proposal for business,
It's
general business out there. So,
it's also through the it's not a council initiated rezoning, it's a new owner
Right.
pursuing that opportunity or potential.
if there's anyone else, because I just have a couple more.
Can I just
Yeah.
ask, for clarity on that same point, which is two, Paulina? got it?
Is as you're heading out of Sorell, it's the first corner
The first one.
between the rivulet and
Yep.
Paulina Road.
Thank you.
The commercial property that is discharging waste into Pittwater, there's a time frame now for them to do something about it. Can I ask what the time frame is, because it's been
A long time
a
coming.
long time coming.
Through now, Russell, we haven't got any specific, have we yet?
I think,
I'll throw
I
that.
can certainly come back and inform council, but we have written a legal letter now of enforcement, basically council comments of late on, and it's had to go to the licensee because there's no other way, because of how they've got the company structured to do that. And that licensee is aware of that, so I can bring you an update back to the next council meeting in terms of the timeframe agreed set on that. Okay.
Thank you. I just want to also say that the carriage shed is coming along very nicely. The floor looks great, and I believe the doors are being constructed. And,
Yes, I mean, it would have been finished, but I should say allegedly, the floods up north at Delarone.
Yeah.
That was the timber yard in there somewhere in Bass Strait. The timbers that were allocated for them,
For
so
that purpose.
if it wasn't Southern Midlands Council involved, I'd think, turn it up, but I know the general manager's generally pretty honest. So they'll be done by, we have to have the whole thing, as in the project funding for that done by Christmas, so our contractor's been really good in getting what they've done to date. So, but the budget will be fully expended once the doors, gates go on, and the floors down, that'll pretty much be it. We've done. We're very lucky to have been able to extend the scope of that funding to include for it.
And I just want to thank you again for getting that funding, because you persevered. And,
Group effort.
and as I said to Jess earlier, I look forward to working with councillors on an opening for that shed, because it's been a long time coming to.
It's just the complete irony of probably the only capital job that's significantly under, was for a heritage listed restoration project. I would never in a million years have thought that would happen, so.
But we had to get heritage exemptions to do what we want to do. Yeah.
That's all that is.
Thank you.
Through the mayor,
Right.
on page 25, the HR report, and community services. Just an update, if I may, on the stadium canteen operator and Sorell Football Club, those developments, those facilities, just where we're at the moment.
So we signed a licence agreement with Cheese and Deli Kitchen
Mhm.
to operate the canteen and bar from the stadium.
Mhm.
So they were just waiting on occupancy for them to be able to commence operating in there. They'll be operational for the opening on the 9th of December, and then it's likely in New Year they'll be fully operational. The Sorell Football Club are meeting on the 29th of November to make their decision around the agreements the football club coming up to council. And they'll advise us prior to the 2nd of December.
Thank you.
I did have one more. It was just,
Oh,
sorry. Oh, no,
Yes,
I didn't.
yes.
I'm sorry.
No, you're right.
Okay, thank you. So, page 16, public health. There is a question about water from Blue Lagoon released onto Red Oak Beach. It says here, water samples collected from the lagoon revealed elevated levels of indicator bacteria after rainfall. But the levels were considerably lower than the levels typically found in urban stormwater. So I have a couple of questions about that. Is that Russell?
Yeah, probably.
What is it meant by indicator organisms?
So typically it's bacteriological counts. So it's fecal or enterococcal. Yeah, there's a couple of them.
Yeah.
Markers. Yeah.
Yeah. So does that mean that there's sewage going into the lagoon?
No, not necessarily. It means that there is matter there. Now, whether it comes from bird life, whether it comes from silage, who knows? But all Greg's basically saying is it's a lot less than a lot of the other outfalls that we've got, particularly, I suppose, in that lower density residential zone. Yeah, for these tested.
Yeah. So I noticed here it says that the levels were lower than urban stormwater.
Yeah.
But this is not urban environment. So has been any consideration about that?
Well, it's actually under the stormwater act, it is classified as a composite area.
Right.
Okay. So, yeah.
No, I mean the words really used. That's on it.
Oh, the receipt, it's classifying against the recreational water quality is what is tested. That's the set of rules that it's tested against. So when we do the beach sampling in the summertime, which starts on, I think, 1st of December, it's all against those rec water guidelines. Just for swimming in contact, that's the determination of the levels. Okay.
Thank you.
No worries.
Yeah, just the new location for the playground to replace the Penton Street one. Is that opposite the midway point of land, midway point neighbourhood?
It's in that, we haven't really settled on exactly where, but there's certainly land, there's vital land. You might bearings to the north of the sort of tennis court, basketball, up towards the naval house. There's a great swathe of land there that's large enough.
And that's, well, yeah, that's about the only bit of council land left.
Is there meant to be community consultation into that though? Because that's what was advertised in the Sorell Times.
Well, through me, that what hasn't happened is that state growth, such the project associated with the park and ride at Midway Point. So before state growth can progress anything, they need to put in the DA for the park and ride, and as part of that, they'll need to do some communication and engagement around that. Plus, we can do some ourselves around the relocation of any facility to the our site near the naval house. So they've started, but they haven't really done it comprehensively because they were waiting on the zoning to change where the park and ride's going to go first. And they were hoping to have had that all done so that the contractors who did the junction upgrade were also going to do the park and ride. And as part of that, we'd be providing funds so we could do the park upgrade.
I think the time will be determined when the DA comes in for the park and ride effectively. That the whole community get talk to about is the park and ride, and this is where the park's moving to and what we'd like to see at the park, because the one at Fenton's got a lot of equipment being aimed at children at the moment, limited, but it tends to be aimed at that age group in terms of what's there at the moment.
Just a question for you, Jess. You've got psych mental health care youth engagement programs. Can you explain a bit more about that, and is it something we're looking at?
Yes, we had a meeting with Psych Mental Health, we've recently moved down into Station Lane, about engaging with some of the sporting clubs and then potentially the broader youth community to run group mental health training. They're exploring a grant through Healthy Tasmania, which they've requested council to partner with them on, but we've only had an initial discussion with them, and yeah, they'll be coming back to us.
What sort of programs do they run?
I think the concept that they've actually run it with the South East Suns already is to provide group mental health training, so that or sessions, so that the young people are having conversations using language and concepts that they're all aware of, because they find that when they're having individual sessions, then they have an individual session, they go out amongst their peers and they're not talking the same language. So that's sort of the concept around the group education.
Thank
you.
Sorry, one more if I may, sorry, through you, Mayor, is the dog management plan, just an indication of what sort of feedback has been known, we don't know?
Oh, through I'm not aware of any hit, Russell.
Yeah, it's
Lots, a little
limited.
limited.
It's mainly around times of use of the beach that we expected. So people requesting, as you've seen at the community conversations, alternate times about when dogs are allowed back on beaches.
Mhm.
And then on the flip side, we've got the people that don't want on the beaches at all. So as usual,
Yeah.
but like less than 15 Councillor Reid,
Right.
responses, but probably split pretty evenly into the two camps.
Okay, thank you. And will that process comes to council, but is it the 1st of December that the regulations kick in?
In terms of the hours, yes.
Hours, yeah.
So it'll come to council with a report and access to representation as well.
Thank you.
With that, I shall put the motion of departmental reports for acceptance. All those in favour? Passed unanimously, thank you. 9.0, we have no petitions before us at the moment. 10.0 is land use planning. The Mayor advised in accordance with the provision of Part 2, Regulation 25 of the Local Government Meeting Procedures Regulation 2015, the intention of the Council to act as a planning authority pursuant to the Land Use Planning Approvals Act of 1993 to be noted. In accordance with Regulation 25, the Council will act as a planning authority in respect to those matters appearing under item 10 of this agenda, inclusive of any supplementary items. 10.1 is the DASC committee minutes from 18th October 22. Move to those, please. Mr. Reynolds and Councillor Trenier, second, thank you. Any discussion regarding those minutes? Then for acceptance, all those in favour? Passed unanimously. Eleven point one is the Cocking Authority report. Move that, please. Councillor Reid, thank you. And the secretary is Councillor Reynolds. Any discussion regarding the report? None, so I shall put that report for acceptance. All those in favour? Passed unanimously, thank you. 11.2, now we've all got a pecuniary interest here.
No comment.
No comment? Need a mover and a seconder, please, for the certificate of election for the 2022 local government election. Okay, well, thank you, and councillor Reid second. Thank you very much. And welcome along, everybody, if you pass this. Anybody wish to discuss anything in this? Protest it? No Donald Trumps or? All right, so 11.2, the certificate of election, I shall put for passing. All those in favour? Passed unanimously, thank you very much. Eleven point three is council meeting times. I'll move it to this, please. Mr. Campbell, thank you. And second, councillor Trenier, thanks very much. Does anyone want to make comments regarding this motion?
Through you, Mayor.
Councillor Reid, yes.
I would just like to flag for future discussion the change of name of the Development Assessment Special Committee to a more pragmatic Sorell Planning Authority or something along those lines, which won't affect this motion, but
No.
is relevant to
We'll
it.
agree to discuss that at the next workshop.
Yeah.
Yes. Right, so I should put 11.3 for acceptance. All those in favour? Unanimously. 11.4 is councillor representative on the committees. I'll move it, please. Councillor Reid, thank you. Any comment or discussion regarding these that were discussed and worked through at our workshop last week?
I have a question.
Yes.
Thank you. So is there any internal committees or working groups? So here are the external. I couldn't find any internal.
Through me, you'll note that in this table that there are some that we still need to resolve. But there's a couple that are informal communities, if you like, that don't have any statutory weight, which we need to discuss as far as if we'll continue with them or not. But otherwise, I'm just scanning through them. They're all otherwise formal, effectively external committees of council, and some of which involve community interests or community participants as well. But otherwise, none of these are necessarily sort of internal committees. We don't really have any.
We don't have any.
No.
Through the
Councillor
Mayor,
Reid.
just wanted, it was interesting seeing this table because a couple of the committees were, this time 4 years ago, representatives were agreed, but the committees never actually were activated. So the Arts and Culture Committee and the Streetscape Committee have never met in the last 4 years. So it was just unusual to see them on there. They're still on the books, so to speak. And the same for Southern Waste Strategy Authority, which about 3.5 years ago started to change and was defunct soon after, I think. So the comparison of the two lists, I guess there's a lot has changed in the meantime, and the other thing that we've flagged at previous council meetings is the need for or potential for more either official or informal committees or advisory groups in line with our communication and engagement strategy. So hopefully in the coming discussions, we can flesh that out further.
Sorry, I've just noticed, sorry, Mayor, that in that table, the one that Councillor Reid just mentioned, the prior Southern Waste Strategy Authority, I've actually made an error there. It's now referred to as the Southern Tasmanian Regional Waste Authority, not Waste Strategy South. So I'll need to correct that. That's actually giving you a bump steer on that. That was the old
Swaz went to Waste Strategy South and now it's gone to
Southern Tasmanian Regional Waste Authority.
So, yeah, there's been a significant, when you look at what's happened over the 4 years, there's been significant change in that one in particular.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
no other comments on the committee, so I shall put that motion passing. All those in favour? Thank you. 14.1 is executive summary financial report October 2022 year to date. Move it, please. Councillor Reid, thank you. And invite discussion or questions to Scott, seeing we have him here. Taking all the time to read it before.
My question? Thank you. So in number 5, contributions received, I have a question about the public open space contributions. It says here 124,000. Above budget. Yeah, but so the total. So how many contributions add up to that amount?
I think it was only a couple, from memory.
Like 2 or 3?
Yeah,
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's from development.
yes.
Depends on the size of the subdivision, yeah.
So there was one smaller one, one larger one, considerably large. I think there's just can't remember which ones, which from the address locations.
So it comes from each development is about 50 or so $1,000 or.
I'll just refer that back to the GM because the percentage of the developed cost.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, so through there, it's entirely dependent on the size of the subdivision. So when we require cash in lieu of public open space, it's based on 5% of the subdivided area based on the improved value of the land. So literally every property is different. The starting point for the calculation, because the value changes depending on where it is, how big it is, how many lots there are, etc. So I would say as a default, we tend to, the sort of subdivisions we generally deal with, we taking public open space contribution would be more prevalent than the developer providing land and developing it. It just all depends on where it is, what it connects to, what our open space strategy is. It's very much site by site or subdivision by subdivision, and we can't really accurately predict from year to year how much we will get, because it's all, like I said, based on what is submitted, what gets approved, when it gets approved. So it's not unusual that we get an above budget variation, because it's just unpredictable in nature.
So is there any thoughts about raising that contribution of the percentage?
Yeah, we can't. So it's legislated under the Local Government Building and Miscellaneous Provisions Act, Equality Read. We are entitled to take 5%. If we want any more than 5%, we have to pay.
I think the policy actually said we'd take, I think it reads somewhere between 3 and 5, depending on other range of factors at the moment in the policy.
So we're taking 5 or?
In general,
3?
we're taking 5, but we don't take 5 individually.
So through there, we have a separate policy as well, which Russell's alluding to. Depending on circumstances, we may take less than 5%, but the maximum we can ask without having to pay ourselves is 5%.
Thank you.
Just following on from Aristo's question, we must be accruing a sizable sum in our public open space. Is there any idea how much?
Listed in the report.
Page. Actually, I won't know what page it is.
It's 798,000.
Page 82.
On which
At the
page?
moment.
I'm sorry.
798,000.
So just through me, it forms part of our cash reserve, so it's certainly, it's in a separate account if you like,
Yeah,
or identified
yeah.
separately, but otherwise it's representing our cash position.
No more questions on the financial report. I shall put it for acceptance. All those in favour? Unanimously, thank you. And we move into questions from the public. And nice to see a few along tonight. And if you would like to ask a question, please just stand and clearly state your name and ask away, and we'll do our best to answer. Who wants to start us off?
Oh, okay. I'll read it out last because I'm trying to read. Okay, first of all, congratulations to all the councillors who've been returned and welcome to the new blood in the council. We might have some good results. Barnsley, Robert. I spoke with Rebecca Smith today. She was going to follow up. I spoke to her after the last meeting. And Barbara Reardon's property has been, or estate has been settled. But she was going to follow up on the history, which I sort of know anyway. So my query is, how come council didn't know something about Ralph Reardon's subdividing the land, and why can't we find out who owns it? And the other is, are you going to spray the bone seed? That's just question one. And I've got to say who I did a big Dodgersbury, if you guys know. Okay, probably not going to win friends and influence people on this one. It is my somewhat diluted Scottish blood that asks me, or prompts me to ask the question, has council considered placing a limit on the number of weeks and months, or months, that an elected councillor can have time off? We're looking at May, I think, minutes. There was quite a lot of money spent for someone who didn't turn up to very many meetings. So that's just a question I'd like to know the answer to.
We'll answer that now, if you like, but the council leave of absence, it's covered by the Act.
The regulations.
Regulations, sorry, and that is outside of our control.
It was just a lot of money. Another question, just flipping the page here. At the last meeting, I mentioned some ideas I had to promote Sorell because of the bypass, and I did notice that there's new painting on some of the buildings along there, so they've got their ideas up. But is there any thought of having perhaps a meeting of like-minded people who are interested in promoting Sorell in some form, whether it's sort of street art, little cutouts and things like that? I'm interested. I know that Nathan, I've spoken to him, and Jeanette is interested. And I did speak to you, Kerry, at one of your community conversations, and you're interested in history. So is there anything that can be done to promote Sorell?
Yes, we've been working with the Sorell Business Association and brought over a consultant, as we mentioned last time, and we haven't discussed it because we haven't had a full workshop with the new council, but it was agreed that the last council to further consult with a Tasmanian company that specialises in bringing it together to form what might be our identity and what might fit. We have been recording those suggestions that various people have been making, getting ready for that. Obviously, with Christmas on the doorstep now, it'll probably be after Christmas. We received another sizable submission in the last couple of days on some thoughts from a long-term resident, which has also been put into the system and reported for that. And we'll be progressing that, I would say, pretty well straight after Christmas.
The other question is not so much for me, but from a friend who's concerned about the businesses that are closing in the town. And the main concern was about the fact there's a new cigarette shop in town. Apparently, I don't smoke, so I haven't got a clue. very inclusive one. But there apparently is a cigarette shop somewhere in town, from Station Road or something, I don't know. So if he was at a meeting and was concerned, and people there were concerned about another cigarette shop in town. So you can do anything about that.
Private enterprise, no, we can't. Private enterprise is exactly what that is, and the council would be absolutely caned if it started try to interfere with private enterprise and what can come to town or not. A lot of people still smoke, I don't. So
It is lung cancer awareness month.
well, it's good you've raised it, but obviously they see a commercial venture there.
I realise that.
Business closing in town can be for numerous reasons, and we normally do because of our connection with a lot of those businesses have a chat with them. We also work very hard as a council for a number of years to produce an environment that attracts businesses to the town. We were having moderate success or pretty solid success up until COVID, but of course since COVID, the regulations that the banks are forcing down the line to anybody wanting to borrow money, and the amount of turnover and the regular income has made business planning quite difficult. So it's not quite as easy now to start up a bricks and mortar business. But it's something we are involved with. CERDA is involved with that on behalf of the whole region as well. We do have regular talks, the General Manager and I, with people that would like to come to Sorell to open different sorts of businesses. We don't get to pick though which one wants to put their money on the line to do it. We just have to try and make sure we create an environment that will assist them if they do set up a business.
And I apologise on behalf of Sharon who has heard it. And apparently the flight path that haven't got very far with it at all. Thank you.
Thank you. Former Councillor Graham Evans.
Thank you, Mayor. One of the things I've found a bit difficult about this particular meeting is the last 5 minutes has been good, but the majority of the meeting was difficult to hear, and especially when people were speaking in that, the councillors were speaking in that direction. I could understand yourself and the General Manager and these two gentlemen over here quite well, but quite often when people speak in that direction, it's a bit difficult. I've noticed that all of the microphones are well back out of the way, which probably help if they were closer to the councillors. Yeah, that should be going. The other thing that I was wondered about was when I was actually a councillor, I'm sure that, except in the committee meeting, that in an ordinary meeting like this, I was requested to stand up when I was speaking. Why aren't we doing that now? No one stood up at all.
I'd say that quite a few of the councillors didn't want to do that about 5 years, maybe 6 years ago. And yes, for a long time, the Speaker always stood to speak, outside of the Chair and General Manager, but that has not been the case for approximately 6 years now, and has died out in quite a few councils as well.
6 years.
That's
I didn't think I was going from here that long. But, it was only 4. Perhaps I'm not counting right. A couple of quick questions. Whereabouts is the Midway Point, the new Midway Point playground going to be, or proposed to be? It's moved from Benton Street.
3 minutes. We're intending to put it up near the neighbourhood house and tennis court, basketball court on the northern side. It's only,
Use that small section of grass that's there.
yeah, it's only a fairly modest size facility.
And there was mention of the playground at Kenner. That was a bit interesting.
I think Councillor Owens meant Paulina, sorry.
Ah, right, yeah. Paulina's that way. Yeah, it's that way. No, just that I'm in Kenner quite a lot, I couldn't work that one out. Kenner has progressed quite a bit as far as public open space goes, with the dog park now having bridges and seats and things like that. Hopefully the rain will stop and there'll be a bit of mowing able to be done there because it's starting to get really overgrown. Can I just ask one more question, which is left over from when I was a councillor here. When I was a councillor here, I was actually sort of in charge of the hall. Officially I was. And one thing, just before I left, the front door had a problem. It hasn't been fixed. Now, some people think that it might have been fixed, but it hasn't been. It's to do with the front door has two sections. There's a smaller section, which is a fire door, has a push bar, and a bar that comes down, which is supposed to connect up there, and down the bottom. It no longer does that properly. So that about 2 months ago, I put in a complaint that when I arrived here one day, because I'm still doing a lot in the hall, running the history room and looking after the paintings, which are worth many thousands of dollars, that I managed to get to the hall with Kerry a long time ago. I walked up to the door and it was open. And it was open because there was some people, I'm sure the people that were using the hall the previous day were people that were running some sort of a horse workshop. And they definitely weren't from this area. And they hadn't shut the fire door properly. As soon as I started fiddling with the key, this is quite difficult to undo and do up anyway with the keys. As soon as I started fiddling with them, the doors just came open because they weren't locked properly. That's really worries me, these things, when we have all those thousands of dollars worth of paintings in the hall permanently on display. And also the history room, which has already been burnt once by some horrible person that did that from the outside, but that's another story. But we really do need to get someone to fix the fire door at the front of the hall. Has that been recorded, Jess?
It's been recorded, thanks, Graham.
Good, thanks. It really needs fixing several years ago. As far as I was there, I thought it had been, because most of the time I went around and educated all the usual users like karate and the market and so on, and told them exactly how to lock the door, which is quite fiddly. And those people have been doing the right thing, but it's only when someone new comes in that doesn't know how to fiddle with the fire door to get it to lock properly before you turn the keys. Anyway, thank you. Congratulations to all those people who have been elected.
Thank you, Graham.
Okay.
Shadow.
I'm Shadow Sorell from Sorell. It's lovely to meet you all, or see you again. And also, congratulations. I'd like to see, is it possible to get some sort of permanent community group happening in Sorell, something that could focus on mental health potentially? Because there's a few organisations around, but there's nothing too much in Sorell itself.
We try to stick to things that are core services for council or help facilitate things that the community does feel they need at various times, whether it be youth, mental health in the past. We have an issue with just having meetings for the sake of having meetings sometimes, Shadow, unless there's a dead set purpose. So if you would feel that there is a need for that, or there is a lack of attention in that area, Justice Department usually have people that they can talk to find out whether they need to bring a group together, or and we can look at help facilitating, but always open to discussions on any of those points.
Yep. All right. Something else. With the Midway Point Neighbourhood House playground area sort of thing happening there, is there too much need to have a playground there when they seem to have a little playground set up there already? Is it possible to put some funding towards that to build that up? And then in that other space near the basketball court, potentially put something else that the community might need?
Yeah, through me, that we're open options because all that's happened to date is the Department of State Growth came to us last year with the view to doing the park and ride facility right where the playground is now. So we thought it appropriate that they provide us with a contribution to re-establish something on that site. So we haven't yet worked out details of where or what, so we're happy to consider that.
Thank you. And then the last thing, I'd also like to second the notion of maybe getting some sort of promotional Sorell group around for arts or just something to kind of get the publicity of Sorell going. Some marketing or like even at the roundabout up there, near the bypass, or the bypass roundabout. Maybe having something in the middle of that or some better signage and things for Sorell. That just might be nice.
I just cracked a smile for that one because we are having some frustrations with the new bypass. At the moment, it's still under the construction phase where it's under a maintenance period of the contractor. The department hasn't taken control of it. It's not ours. If we go to do something with the roundabouts, council has to take a lease on it. And because it's near vehicles, I learned a new word 12 years ago, Councillor Trini, is frangible. Frangible. It's probably something that's going to collapse really easy if your car hits it. So there's a lot of rules and regulations, I guess, is what I'm saying, but we're pretty disappointed, to say the least, with the landscaping of the whole bypass. We are working with the department. The general manager has another meeting with the department in coming days, Thursday, to continue that discussion. We're also having lengthy discussions around the signage, which would have been done from a desktop originally in Hobart. They've been down and done a survey of some of the strange things like Cole Street pointing over to the hill that's not even passed as a road or a for residential development at this stage. There's been plenty of comments about that, but we're working through those. We're in like a bit of a twilight zone at the moment. It's not a bad thing as such. We've been doing vehicle counts on the roads through to determine the change in the movement of vehicles. We're also talking to businesses about any change in the visitation to their business and turnover. You can make a lot of quick decisions based on emotion and not fact amongst this. So the fact that our town hasn't been devastated by the bypass is quite a good thing, unlike some other towns that have been bypassed in the past that haven't had the strength of being the hub of the southeast, that were devastated. We haven't been. So what we think, and as I said before about bringing a consultant in that's professionally done this before, it'll give us the advantage of doing something once, doing it properly and not wasting money on things that mightn't be relevant really to how people perceive the services in Sorell or what we need in Sorell. So you have a lot of input, and usually out of half a dozen strange, different, good, bad, whatever ideas, you bring them into a melting pot to come up with something that will work and will be affordable and will be sensible to both community groups, sporting groups, business houses and residents all the same. So believe me, we are working on it very well. The Sorell Business Association is at the forefront of this also, and we hope to ramp that up after Christmas. So a lot of the things that you've mentioned we are working on and will continue to work on.
Yeah. So I'd love to be part of it. Thank you.
Thank you. If there's no other questions, we need to move into closed session for a while. So thank you very much for coming along. It's nice to see some numbers along without Sharon being one of them. So all the best to Sharon with the COVID. No worries. See you.
Beautiful. Look forward to it.
Thanks, Sharon.
What they try, they have, they've not spent nothing since, or not got over, got their photos for, so it's been to